Hi, guys. Thank you for joining. This is Essence of Life, and today we're talking about breaking barriers. I'm Amanda Armagast.
I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence, and we have a special guest today. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Josh Lindquist.
So, Josh, you and I, you have been actually my patient. That is how we got connected. But you have such an interesting life story that I thought not only we can keep our relationship as a doctor and a patient, but as well a guest on our podcast to share your quite significant and valuable experience with
And moving experience as well.
with our viewers. So tell me first of all, how did we meet? I mean, tell us about that.
Well, I grew up, and a little bit of my life story. So I grew up and I got into drugs when I was young. I don't know if you know that about my story. But then to get off of drugs, because I realized drugs wasn't going to take me anywhere, I got into wrestling. So I became a wrestler, and then I grew at a pretty significant level in wrestling. Mm-hmm. So I've won 3 regional national championships, which is like a segment of the United States, and then I got 3rd in the national world team trials. So in that career, I ended up breaking my back. So
number one, that's the best way to break through the drug problem.
Yeah. Finding a new hobby, especially something where you're using your body.
Especially high athletic, because believe it or not, on the medical side, we should actually have a medical podcast about that. When you are doing high athletic, your body is pumping catecholamines. Yeah. Same thing that the cocaine gives you, but natural, in a healthy way. Yeah. So what is the better way of overcoming drug? With your internal capacity of your body, by putting your body through its own barrier, breaking the barrier. So good job on that.
Yeah,
you succeeded there. So you went from having wrestling, and you injured yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, so wrestling was like, back then they called it the anti-drug, and so wrestling was my anti-drug. And but in that, I broke my back with what's called a spondylolisthesis. So
but that is when your spine not only moves this way, but as well slips forward or backward.
Yeah. So ever since high school, I've been in like hellish level pain. Like I'm sitting right now with no pain, thanks to Dr. Abbasi.
Well, surgery was what, how many months ago?
Almost 4, so like
4 months.
3.7.
No, the first month was rough, right? Or first 2 months were rough, but you turned around, right?
Yeah, it was. I had the nerve pain. Like I shared my testimonial that I did for Amanda yesterday, and so it was difficult, but it wasn't horrible.
Yeah,
I thought it was gonna be like absolutely horrible. It was challenging, but it wasn't like wretched,
Okay, well now you can sit and be in a podcast with us.
Yeah, this is like 22 years of not being able to sit for longer than 5 minutes.
Yeah, no. So we met to fix your problem, but then one of the things I think you told us is that now you can go to Africa, and go through the roads in Africa and not suffer through it.
Yes.
Well, not everybody goes to Africa. What takes you to Africa?
Yeah, that was huge. So after I broke my back, I had an Olympic dream. So the guy I actually beat in the competitions in America actually won the Olympic trials.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so
you beat him?
I beat this guy. Yeah.
So you pretty much would have won.
Yeah.
I don't know. The guy's tough, but I broke my back. So
Jesus, if that back would have complied with you, you would have been.
I could have been my Olympic dream. I could have made my Olympic dream, but then what happened was like my lifelong dream since I was 4 was to be an Olympian and to do all these things, and it was shattered. So in the midst of that, it was like, oh my God, my life is like, what am I going to live for? And then that's when I began the soul search for God. And that's where I became a missionary, and I'm a passionate guy. I'm kind of like, whatever I do with everything I've got,
Yeah.
So I decided, and in that time, I just, I just really believe I had this encounter with God, and He met me in my pain, and He met me in my despair, and then just began to bring healing to my heart and give me purpose. And really, in that purpose, it's to reveal Him to others and then to help others. Because I know you know this because I watch you help your patients. But there's like no greater high in life than loving someone else and serving someone else and taking care of someone else and seeing someone else's life get better, right?
I mean, that's sometimes, just one patient that their life has changed, that makes my whole week.
Fuels everything.
fuels you. And at the end of the day, I totally can sympathize with that. What that really means, giving, what that means. Now, what I'm so excited to know all the details now.
Yeah.
So Africa or India, go
so
ahead.
I've been to like 40 countries, and I get on these long flights. You know, I was watching one of your testimonials of there's this one guy that he's like, when I get on these 18-hour flights, I think he was a Somali guy. You probably remember him. But he's like, when I get on these flights, he's like, it was torment because the pain in my back. And he's like, I'd have to sedate myself. And like, yeah, I knew that guy's pain because I'd get on these 15-hour flights and it's just like wretched. And so, yeah, but now I know I can go back to the mission field. Like I know and do my life purpose and mission. And so in all that, yeah, I've been to 40 countries. I've been to India, Africa, Asia, South America. I'm usually always traveling.
Now, we are calling this breaking through barriers. We just talked about that. What barriers do you break when you go to a place like that? Tell us. I want to know some personal, some of that may be emotional, but whatever you can share with us, because I think everybody should go like, I hate to say that, but when we were coming back, Amanda was so happy we are back in US because we saw so much misery, so much, as well, so many good experiences, but as well, so much misery.
A lot of like imbalance, I would say, like social imbalance.
Yeah, we were in like a $1 billion hotel, or that would be a $1 billion hotel in the United States. But a mile away was literally the slum and dead bodies and so on. So, but share with us some of your experiences, okay? What emotionally really takes you?
You guys will see it. You guys saw it in India, and I've gone to Kenya, I don't know, 15, 20 times, many times over the last 15 years, 20 years. And so I go to East Africa a lot. And when you go there, you'll see these kids just living on the street, and they're begging, and they sleep on the street. And so here in America, like even when people have hard times, like the poorest of the poor here would be considered rich in these other countries. And you just see tremendous suffering and pain. And so one thing that really just gripped my heart was to help some of these street kids come off of the street and get into school. And so, yeah, we've done that quite a bit where we go into Africa. And then a lot of times...
May I ask a question?
Sure.
The concept of street kids is not really, you're not familiar with that. In the rest of the world, that's a very known entity. As a matter of fact, in Brazil, this literally street, shops and so on. This is not a joke, and this is a very sad story. They would hire killer commandos, even in 1980s and 90s, to go and kill these kids.
Because the kids won't be able to like make it out of the streets.
These kids, they have no substance. They would just, steal or small petty thefts and so on and so forth to just survive.
Yeah.
And they literally, these shops, they will come together, and these are people who are born, parents die away or abandon them, and this is we cannot even wrap our head around that. They grow up from the childhood just on the street. Please, but tell me about that.
Yeah, so it just burdens you because it's like, okay, sometimes there's a lot of people who deal with different issues that lands them on the street, but these kids didn't do nothing.
They're born like that.
They're born, their parents die, and it just breaks your heart just to see them. And so I just began to ask God, like, how can I help these kids? Like, what can we do? And so I began to, on some of my trips, I would go and I would get one of them and I would bring them to go get some chips, which is French fries, right? They call them chips over there. And just sit down with them and just tell them, hey, God loves you and has a purpose for your life. And I believe you can come out of this. And then from there, I work with different people locally because I come in as a traveling missionary or traveling helper. And then I work with people locally who can get them into a program where they can find healing, they can get education.
How do you break through that barrier? Because these are kids, probably the parent in Africa, especially in Africa, AIDS was and is rampant. They die of AIDS. They have never seen love in their life. Everything they see in their life is just taking advantage of them.
Survival.
How would you break through that barrier? That truly, I'm not here to take advantage of you. I don't want anything from you. I want to give you something. How would you break that barrier? Because I think these kids, they cannot just trust people. Tell me about some of your personal experience there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just tell them about the love of God, that there's someone who created you and that loves you and has a purpose and plan.
Do you speak with them in what language?
In Kenya, they speak English. Sometimes I have to get an interpreter, but many of the kids, they're bilingual in Kenya.
Mhm.
But other countries, not so much.
Mhm.
But yeah, and so you spend time with them, and you really got to find one who really wants out. And when you find them, it's so hard because we've got them in the programs, and then I hear a month later they ran away from the program to go back to their friends on the street. It just breaks your heart. It's like
It's hard to develop that trust, I think, because they don't really know that they can trust you.
All they know is,
but they know they can trust their friends because they've lived on the streets with their friends.
And they miss their friends or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's just a pull for them to go back into the old. But so we've tried to bring a lot of the kids off of the streets in Kenya and other places, and we've had a few that have stuck. And the few that have stuck, it's like, all right.
Even one person is worth it.
It's worth all the effort.
Even one person is worth all the effort, because if you see the future of these kids, again, this is not a joke. The store people, owners, they hire kill commandos to kill literally like wild dog that gather them and kill them. We cannot wrap our head around what kind of misery this is. And that reminds me of, you guys are too young to remember Elvis, okay?
We all know Elvis.
But you know Elvis, but he had this song, it's called In the Ghetto. It starts with, in a cold Chicago morning, a child is born in ghetto, and the mama is crying because the last thing she needs is another mouth to feed. And then says, this kid never meets love. I mean, that's the lyric, okay? And then just with a runny nose, all nose is fighting on the street. And then ends up, stealing and dying. And then it repeats that while this person is dying as a young man, another kid is born that goes through the same cycle again and again and again. So
it's either 1/3 or 2/3 of all the homeless people right now are directly straight in the U.S. from the foster care system. They've never had a house. They've never had parents. They're directly from the foster care system to the streets. And that's a U.S. statistic.
Yeah, well, but these are still people in U.S. We give them a lot of resources. Though there's no resources there. They're like, they literally fight with wild dogs for leftovers and so on.
They're digging the dumpsters, and it's just, I don't know. It's like when you have the love of God in your heart for people, you just feel people's pain, and you just want to help, and you want to do what you can. If God has blessed us, being here in America is like, as I've traveled to 40 countries, like we have it so good here. It's incredible.
Everybody should travel abroad, okay?
And not only travel abroad, but travel and immerse yourself into actual cultural experiences.
That is what we did.
If you're traveling to India, you have to see real India. You can't just go to like the fancy temples and have a personal driver. You have to actually understand what's going on.
But it's safe.
Yeah, do it safely, but you need to understand what's going on in the countries you're visiting and not just be a tourist.
And then when you come back, you have a greater appreciation with what we got here. Yeah. But so you talk to these kids, you practically make a personal connection with them and try to connect them to God.
Yeah.
And then what is the next step? I mean, what does it work? Is there a home there? Yeah. Who is supporting you? What is the umbrella? Tell me a little detail.
Yeah, so I try to find people who are local on the ground, who are really doing the stuff, who have the heart. And so, I remember just going to bed and just crying out to God. One time it was my birthday, and on my birthday, I grabbed a group of these kids and brought them into a local church. And I said, hey, it's my birthday, and we're going to celebrate. And I'm going to buy you chips. I'm going to tell you about God. I'm going to tell you about Jesus. And so I did that, and then I was able to talk to the kids and say, hey, there's an opportunity here where some of you, I could possibly get you into school, get you into a home. And so a couple of them wanted it. And so what we do is we try to find a group home, someone who's doing this, who's safe, who's, one guy I work with in particular, he went through this himself. He was a street kid, and then he was rebelling against his father. That's how he landed on the streets. But then he found God, changed his life, and now he has a program with his dad actually to help these street kids.
In Kenya?
That's really sweet.
Really cool. Because I go to so many countries that I can't be the one on the ground, but I try to find the people who are healthy, safe, and have like,
create a network. You see, good-hearted people are everywhere, and they can achieve together so much more than each individual. And connecting them together, I think, is a huge job. Now, my kudos to you. Now, but again, is there an organization here in the United States that you go with that organization, and tell us a little about the infrastructure of that
Sure.
work you do.
So I have my own nonprofit. I've had it for 15 years.
Wow.
So so I go, and then different projects I go on. Like there's people who will pray for me, and then there's people who actually like will come up to me and say, "Hey, what?" Because they know like I have my own business. So when I do missions, I'm not doing it for money. I take my own money a lot of times and I dump it into these missions. So I have a group of friends that are like entrepreneurs, business people, and they're like, "Hey, what project are you on now?" And I'll tell them, they're like, "Oh, I want to help with this one," So in East Asia, I won't say the nation because I've almost got in trouble.
Definitely, we will put the name of your organization here for people who are interested. Not to see, most of the time when you give to one of these big organizations, some of them, unfortunately, 90 cents of each dollar goes to keeping the organization alive. Only 10% goes to actually do a good
Especially
job.
those ones that say like round up and this and that when you're checking.
Yeah, well, most of them actually, United Nations, even I think half of the money goes to keep the organization alive, and less than half of it goes to.
It's crazy.
So whereas these small, truly
individuals,
or,
people that have more of a mindset for doing this, not like,
and you put even your
image.
own money in that, so that is a huge difference. So we'll definitely add your information, and I hope that some good people find in their heart to contribute to that. But so when was the last time you were in Kenya?
I think I was there like last winter before my surgery, actually.
Okay.
So I was there.
How is the situation there? I mean, on the ground with this homelessness and these street children and so on. Do you see that something is changing there? Is there a little hope that things are getting better in Africa?
I would hope so. One thing I'm really huge on is I found that sometimes people are in such a desperate place where you just have to get them fed, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times that can create a dependency to where it's unhealthy, to where now their whole way to survive is from you. So one thing I'm really after is empowering them to overcome, rather than enabling them to be in their same place. Because you can actually give to someone and actually hurt them.
Yes.
Which is scary.
Yeah.
I've learned this through the years of like, oh, okay, now I am their source. I am their resource. But what I like to do is equip them with a skill. So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm like a serial entrepreneur. I love entrepreneurship. And so what I love to do is give them a business. So
and that is breaking through economic barrier.
And it's not just helping the individual. It's now their family can learn the skill and their friends can learn the skill.
It has a domino effect.
Yeah, and even good for the country.
Yeah,
I love those projects. And then
I want to know more about
those
that.
projects. Okay, so I won't say the nation because, like I said,
I remember.
Got in trouble there. But I was in a nation, and I have a friend that knows little girls that would be trafficked into sex trafficking.
Oh my God!
Yeah. It's
rampant.
It's wretched. And so he has orphanages for these little girls. Okay, and then the moms, some of them are moms, and some of them are women who've been stuck in sex trafficking as well, different things. And so my friend, so I work with people that are on the ground and like are invested, because I go to so many places, like, you can pour your life into just one nation if you want, but I like to travel, right? Especially now that my back is on. So, but I was talking with my friend, and he was having some challenges getting funding, and I told him, I said, look, I said, you need to switch your strategy. We need to invest into land and businesses in your country, rather than just getting donations and spending it for your annual budget. Make
it self-sufficient, make it self-funding. 100%. Absolutely. 100%.
So we did it. So I worked with this guy and really prayed and looked at his books, because I'm an entrepreneur. He's a guy with a big heart, and I'm a guy with an entrepreneurial mind and a heart too. But like,
oh no, well, that's this. You need to have both.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I looked at it and I'm like, well, let's how about this rice? So we found a rice field that he could actually buy, and then the women who come out of trafficking come and work that as their job. Meanwhile, we can get them into a sewing center where we can get them sewing machines, which is really cool. So then they have a daytime job. Then they have a trade they're learning for longevity. Okay.
Wow.
And then we
Wow.
take the finances from that and then pour it into his orphanages. And
So you're teaching them not only you don't even give them a net. You teach them how to
fish.
not only to make a net, to make a
Yeah.
So this is just skills. That skills is sustainable. Yeah.
Yeah. So much. And like for the longest time, I like, in my just walk with God and mission of life, like I didn't want to get into business because I was like, oh, I just want to serve people. And then I just had to talk with God, and he just told me, I need you in the business, because if you learn these skills, you can help a lot of people. And a lot of people are trapped in their lives because of economic reasons.
Yeah.
Like these women who are in trafficking, they're not doing it because they're evil women. They're trying to feed their babies.
Yeah.
They're trying to feed
They're
their kids.
desperate.
And that as well, part of the reason why AIDS is so rampant in Africa, especially in Africa, is because of the situation that this women have to just do whatever they need to do to sustain life. They don't have the resources for protection and so on, and that it just adds to misery. When you break that vicious circle, and you're not just feeding them for a day, but you're truly changing
for the life.
The next step, and next day you're taking them from a bad path to put them on a good path. That is so much more sustainable.
They're also growing food, and like a lot of these nations are starving. A lot of these children are starving. So it's a good all around. Like you can't even limit how many good things are being done by this one thing.
Always I get angry if somebody in the United States, I'm so starving. You don't know what starving is. Okay, so you have no idea. Please stop using when you're at 10 a.m. if you're hungry. Stop saying you're starving, because you have seen probably people starving.
Yeah, it's rough. Yeah, they're desperate, and they need empowerment. Be able to break through their life circumstances.
Now, how much money takes? Giving them food is like giving them a fish.
Yeah.
Bringing into a home and so on is like giving them a net. But what you do, you go beyond. You teach them the skills to make it, like a rowing, fishing rod or net, webbing a net or something. For one person, how much in US dollar, what do you think? How much resources does it take to change that life? What do you think?
It's really not that much. Different places we do different programs, right? So like the sewing machines, if you get an average sewing machine in one of these countries, it's like $200, right? If you get a super nice embroidery one, it's like $500, right? When I was with the street kids, the guy who actually was a street kid, who came out of being a street kid, and he asked me, can you help me? I'm like, yeah, let's go. So I went into the place. It was actually really dangerous for me. They were like, it's really rare that you're here. I'm like, well, I'm here and I'm going to love these kids. And they were living under a bridge. They were teenagers living under the bridge. And he said, these kids have a big heart. Can you help them, Josh? Can you just spend some time with them? And in these cultures, like in Africa, when you come as a foreigner with a different colored skin, there isn't a racial tension. They actually really respect that a foreigner is there.
They do.
It's like you're Hollywood. Like there's like
Amanda knows all about that.
Yeah, just in the Kenya, you'll hear, if you guys go, you're gonna go. You'll hear Mzungu, which means white guy. And so I've got it my whole life. So just by showing up there, it's like, okay, some Hollywood star, which I'm not, just visited me, and so I went under this bridge where these kids.
So that helps to break through the barrier.
Yeah.
Because even when one of their own people go, 9 out of 10 times they are there to take advantage of them, but you don't need to go to Africa to take advantage of anybody. So that is the first step through breaking through the barrier. Okay, so you go there, they think they are the movie star, they come to you. Go ahead.
So I lined them all up. A lot of these kids never had a dad, they never had someone positive, and I just lined them up, and I just put my hand on their heart and looked them in the eyes, and I said, God loves you, and He's proud of you, and I'm proud of you. You have a purpose for your life. And I just spoke life into every one of these kids. I have a picture of it somewhere. I'll have to find it.
Yeah.
But just that time was amazing. But then I talked to my friend who he was a street kid. He got out. Now he helps these kids. And I was like, look, we need to develop these kids' business. They need a business. And so we actually went and we bought them a car wash sprayer. So it was like, I don't know, less than $1,000. We bought these group of kids at car wash so they can start this thing.
It's like a station, like something that... So they can work as a team.
Yeah, and they did. Yeah, they actually, I came up with the branding for them. They actually called themselves the Black Army, which is fun. So we came up branding, car wash, got them the equipment, and just said, hey, have at it. Empowering is giving them the tools they need to come out of the limitations they have.
And I think that the beauty of what you do is you create an economy for the local situation. Now,
Yes.
I'm going to tell you some really sad story. European, especially European, but as well many American, big places, they think in an American way. What do? They go and build a beautiful neonatal care in middle of Africa. They buy these incubators and so on. They implant an American institution somewhere there. It works for 3 months, but there's no infrastructure to maintain that. Once something breaks, it's done.
Yeah.
And one thing breaks, and then a chain of things breaks, and then you have this multi-$100 million waste of money. Whereas another company, as well, very well-minded people came together. They created medical devices that is made of available auto parts that is available everywhere.
Wow.
So they create a value for people there that they can be in charge themselves. They don't have to call a company in US or Europe to come and repair things.
And it just hurts you thinking of all the shipping charges that they spent to get these giant expensive machines out there, and then they're only being used for 3 months, when just the money alone for shipping could have done a lot more good.
And I think that is the exact value of what you're providing. You're building an economy for the locals, not economy that is really economy that is really depending on continuous additional support.
I'm really big on empowering them, not enabling them to be dependent.
Yes.
Because when you enable someone to be dependent, you're ruining their lives.
Absolutely.
So does your organization accept like donations, non-monetary donations, like clothing, sewing machines, things like that?
I just connect a lot of dots. A lot of times, some of my friends have their own organizations, and so people come to me and they're like, okay, who's legit? Who's doing this stuff? Who can be trusted? Because I can't tell you how much corruption I've dealt with.
Oh,
it's
I can imagine.
I've had my heart broken a million times. So, like, I probably only, after I travel...
It is that part, taking advantage of good-minded people, that is a business. Everybody has heard of those Nigerian prince, right?
Yeah, for sure.
there is a reason the Nigerian prince is a Nigerian prince.
Yeah, for sure.
So imagine if they try to they do that with us. What do they do to their own people?
It's bad. But for me, like, probably out of all the people I meet, probably 5% I trust. Maybe 10%. And it's hard, but once you find gold, you find someone you can trust.
You stay with them.
You can do a lot of stuff through someone who has a good heart. Doesn't mean they're perfect. Doesn't mean they don't have struggles or whatever. Some things just, I found, I'm on projects. Some things just they don't go as expected. Because I'm an entrepreneur, I'm like, let's get this done. Let's get this project launched. I want to see this well dug. I want to see this machine running. It's my entrepreneur mind. But Africa doesn't always work that way. Yeah. Sometimes you have to be patient, and so sometimes it's not their fault. But when you get someone with a good heart, you can help a lot of people.
One of the things I have felt, is the best sustainable way of taking them out of their misery is education.
Yes, 100%.
Because
100%.
Guess what? What they know, what they can do is for life. Like what you're saying, teach them how to sew, how to do embroidery. That's a skill that will follow them.
And it's transferable. So they can teach their own daughters, or they can teach their friends. And then those people can teach additional people.
You see, that is such a positive contagious thing that they and being able to do that. And for that reason, actually, we have created this so-called Avicenna Technical University, or ATU, that we are trying to as well bring misfortune people from around the world, give them visa, bring them here for a while, teach them skills that is exactly like that. Not teach them how to do high level of things that they never can sustain a life in their place, but teach them skills that enable them to create a value for their local economy and succeed. So I totally sympathize with that. Now, I'm hoping that some of those kids that you moved out of that will be our future students.
Could be.
Yeah. Now, What other countries besides, Africa and so on? Tell us about some of your other experience in other places.
Oh boy. Well, I was thinking there's a really amazing story I was telling Amanda with Malawi. It's still Africa, if I can share it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this one was really interesting and it's still ongoing. So I went on a trip with some friends and we went to Malawi. So part of what I do, because God really touched my life. It's like a part of my story. Everyone, a lot of people have faith. They have something they believe in. And my faith is in Jesus. And I got that from my grandfather. He was like the most loving, generous, godly. He's like heaven on earth. Like everyone loves their grandpa. I love my grandpa so much. And he's just an awesome man, someone I really respect. And so he passed his faith on to me. So now part of my mission is I'm going to help people, serve them, open up them economically, whatever I can do to help them. But the element of sharing my faith is like I do that as well. So we were in Malawi and we were on the market and I was sharing my faith with people. I was with a group of friends and we were just in Africa. They love Jesus. I mean, they're crazy for Jesus. Most of Africa, not all of it, but you talk about Jesus, you're going to get a crowd. They love Jesus, So anyways, I was talking about a God and we were sharing our faith. And this young guy came up to us and he's like, you don't have an interpreter. And in Malawi, they don't know the language as much as in Kenya. In Kenya, a lot of the people have education to learn, Swahili and English, but in Malawi, not so much. So he just started interpreting for us. And it's a young guy from Malawi. And we look at this guy and we're like, this guy's gold. This guy's an amazing guy. And he's not trying to I can tell when someone's trying to get in my pocketbook. Because I deal with it.
Yeah, you have to deal with them too. Yeah.
And I'm like, he's not asking for nothing. And he has a real heart. He just wants to help us and be with us. And so anyways, he ended up interpreting for us and did a phenomenal job. And we're like, who is this guy? He's a godsend, So a lot of times when I do these missions, I pray for divine connections, and like you and your organization, you're like a missionary, but for, surgeries, for help people get out of pain.
Yeah, true.
It's like, you're like, so, but just pray for those connections. I believe God guides us. And for us, I ran into this young guy and me and my friends were like, this guy's outstanding. There's something here. And so we asked him, what's your story? And he's like, well, I've been living in South Africa for, over 10 years now. And I haven't been back to Malawi. He said, Malawi is where I grew up. He says, I grew up in the village, like pretty much in a hut, like not so much a hut, but like in the village, way in poverty and all that stuff. And he's like, my parents died when they were young. And then he said, I started selling stuff on the street to get money because in these countries, you have to pay for your own school fees. Like school isn't like automatically paid for like it is in America.
Wow.
Taxes, you have to pay for your own. So his parents died. So he learned how to be an entrepreneur and sell stuff within his village, which really tight economy, by the way, to pay his school fees. So then he goes from his village in Malawi. Then he goes to, I think, the city of Blantyre, which is the main city. So then he's able to get enough money to go to get school in Blantyre. And then he's able to do entrepreneurial stuff. Then he went from Blantyre to South Africa and he got a very high level education, worked hard. And there's so many people I meet that, they have excuses like, oh, my parents died or what this, or I was less fortunate. I grew up in the village or I didn't have education. He didn't have any of that, but he overcame.
Still took it in his own hand.
You can have excuses for not doing something or reasons for doing something.
Yeah. And obviously, there are lots of people who just go with the flow. Okay, and always try to blame everything else around their life. And there's people who take truly ownership of their destiny. And those are especially the people that really change the course of history, not only for themselves, but for others as well.
Overcomers,
Yeah.
And this young man really broke through. He's actually become a dear friend. And so we asked him, like, well, why are you in Malawi? He's like, well, I was in Malawi and I'm blessed now. He's like, I have a family, a nice house, a nice career, a nice car. And he said, God challenged me, go home to your people and help your people. What are you doing? You haven't been there. You're not, go back to your village and help your people. And he said, I landed yesterday and I just met you guys today. And we're like, oh, this guy is a divine appointment. Like,
you see, it just good people just come together. It's just the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy in Malawi, and connecting with him, he said, well, all the pastors here said, I need to stop doing business. And I said, don't you dare. I said, if God tells you to stop doing business, stop doing business. But I'm like, your business edge God has given you so you can help a lot of people. And I said, pray about it. But if God's not telling you to, keep your businesses. So this guy is a serial entrepreneur. Like this guy, like in Malawi, he's got so many businesses. It's wild. So fast forward a few years later, get to know this guy, and he's just got a heart of gold, big heart, amazing story. Just one of those guys you meet, he's just full of joy. And you just look into him, you just see the light in his eyes, and he's just so thankful for what he's come from. But now he has gone back to his village. He's planted wells. He's planted an agriculture project. He's planted education. He's putting like one day he needed just a little bit of money for some shoes for some kids. I said, done. I'll push it right now. And like just everything. And he's accountable on everything. You can show me receipts. The guy's just excellent spirit, but he's using his entrepreneurship. And so much so it got the attention of the president of Malawi. So I was going to Malawi with him. This is actually last winter. I think it was last winter. I have to look at my photos. I get these years mixed up. But we land in Malawi, and he's like, the president's staff of Malawi wants to meet with us. Like, what are you talking about? And like, who would have thought 4 years before in the market, sharing the good news as I do as a missionary, I would run into this guy who down the road would be talking to the presidential staff of Malawi.
Well, you see, I hate to say that, but there are not many people like you. I wish there were more people like you. And when somebody like you shows up, does the hard work, believe it or not, we as people, as human, we do appreciate that. We do recognize that and so on. So it's not by chance you met the president of Malawi and high-level people and so on, because at the end of the day, a good deed speaks for itself.
So true.
So, yeah. So, and, but I still want to know in some of your, maybe short, some of your other experience in other countries. Like, you said you were in India. Where in India? What's the difference when you go to India versus Africa? What are the differences?
Oh, yeah, because you guys are going to Africa next, right?
Well, we just came from India, where we did surgery pro bono for, some Indian, patient and so on. And more than that, we have donated all our intellectual property to be free of charge to be used in developing country. But more important to me, we are establishing a fellowship program, education, to take these young doctors from Africa, bring to India, help them to learn the skills, so we can send them back. Because maybe it doesn't sound like much, but you just said you couldn't sit.
Yeah, couldn't do this before. I'd be thinking, let me go take a break.
Many of these people, if they're in pain, there is no way they can move in their life, do anything useful in their life.
Yeah.
And guess what? In the United States, just in the United States, where we have the options, 1.5 million of these surgeries are done annually. 1.5 million of the surgery you got.
Fusion?
Yeah.
More.
Yeah, 1.62.
And that was in 2022 or 2021.
And this is now a global phenomenon, meaning that one person is in pain, cannot work.
Yeah.
Not only him, but his whole family. Yeah, they lose their sustenance and so on. Now,
it causes depression. Like
even
because
worse.
of the chronic pain in my life, even as a missionary, even as someone who believes in God, I've had depression. Pain
Absolutely
depresses people, and it pulls down their life. It sucks the life out of them.
But you know what? At least your advantage is that your father doesn't go bankrupt if you don't work. These are economically really disadvantaged people. If one person stops working, the whole family goes down. Yeah. So, and we can do a lot of good work by just doing it. Your surgery was 48 minutes or something like 30-something minutes. Yeah, but now we can help them, to teach them, do 10 of those surgeries a day, and changing 10 lives a day.
And the recovery is so much faster. So these people, they don't really have the time to take months off.
Yeah, and that is really close to my heart, to establish that fellowship program. As a matter of fact, just about 2 hours ago, we met with a doctor from Zimbabwe online. Nice. And who is actually, he was right now not in Zimbabwe. Where was he?
I can't remember right now.
But he travels in Congo.
Yeah.
He's from Zimbabwe, but he was right now in Congo. Wow. He's a professor in 2 departments, and he helped people. And now he's going to help us to bring fellows from both countries to India. And that is what really close to my heart, that bring them in, educate them, send them back. And then all of a sudden, one person can help hundreds and hundreds of people to keep going in life and so on. Because understand that when you are in that kind of pain, nobody can toughen up that kind of pain. When you're in that kind of pain, you're useless to anybody around you.
It just zaps you emotionally.
Yes.
In so many ways. Relationally, it hurts your
relationships. Absolutely.
Everything.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
well, what I want to understand, when you went to India, what is the main difference that when you go to like Africa versus India?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
So yeah, on my last trip to India, I have to be careful what I say.
Yeah.
Because of what I do and whatnot. Yeah, India is actually developing, which is a surprise. I would call it. There's areas where it is a third world country, but it's coming further along than some places I go in Africa. Some places you go in Africa, it's like, wow, this is really undeveloped. But the people there are super special. And the kids that there's different orphanages that I'm connected to in India. It's just absolutely precious. And so the difference between India and Africa is they're all precious people, and they're looking for help. A lot of them, have the Indian kids are very optimistic. They like you.
They're looking forward. Yeah,
I want to be a doctor. So if a doctor shows up and says, "Hey," they're like, "I could be that someday too."
So they have this optimism in themselves.
They study hard. The Indian kids study super hard. And I think India is actually a hub for medicine, actually.
That's how people go from Africa. They're just
friends.
Yeah. That's why we are building that fellowship.
When we were in Karad, they have like really close attachment in Africa. There were a lot of African students there learning.
Yeah. Do you want to tell that story?
Karad.
Okay.
Yeah.
North of Pune.
I think it's south.
Maharashtra.
It's south.
Yeah, it's in Maharashtra, the province and so on. But what I noticed, they were bringing us Indian food that are mild, but we were burning. Our old GI was burning. Yeah. And then there were these African kids there. They were taking the full Indian food, not the mellowed down one, and then putting more hot sauce on it.
Man, spicy. I couldn't do it. I had to tell them, please.
Yeah, we were asking them, okay, no more spice, please.
Oh my God,
yeah. So I think that
Asian restaurant in India, and I was like, oh, finally something without spice.
No, but the funny part was that for these African kids, students in that cafeteria or something like that, they were putting more hot stuff.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
How can you take that?
Yeah, they love the spice.
Well, if so I think I have the same kind of feeling there that the economy in India is looking up.
Totally.
And China, I believe, has gone through that development between 40 and 20 years ago.
I went to China, by the way.
Yeah, okay.
I went there for wrestling. My wrestling.
Wow.
Yeah, that was 2000, so that's 24 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there with Team USA Exchange.
Wow.
That's really
I saw China firsthand. I saw the city and I saw the village.
Wow.
I'm for Team USA. Did you win?
Well, it was exchange. So.
Okay.
Can I tell a funny story on that?
Yeah.
So when I was there, I was really little because I'm a small, I'm like a lightweight, right? So I was back then. It was like I was still like 15 or whatever. And so they told me, they're like, Josh, we have a match for you. We don't have a match. So I went into the village and I got a Coca-Cola. If you know anything about wrestling, you don't drink Coca-Cola before you're about to have an intense sport.
Yeah.
You just don't drink carbonated stuff. It's not good for the stomach. And so anyways, I get there and I come back and they're like, Josh, we do have a match for you. And it's the Chinese national champion. And she's 20 pounds heavier than you.
Did you say she?
They paired me with a girl because guys can wrestle girls. And they didn't have a match because I'm so small. So they found their national champion, right? So I'm on this team with all these other national champion USA guys, and I'm like, if I lose to this girl, I'm done. These are world team guys.
That is a good story.
And so I'm wrestling. I go, and she's strong, and she, if you know anything about wrestling, if they weigh more than you, it's a huge advantage.
The wrestling is.
She had 10 or 20 pounds on me. Her legs were like tree stumps. She was they work hard. Those Chinese are tough wrestlers, right? So I go with the wrestler, and she's kicking my butt. I'm gonna lose. So in wrestling, if you
technique, what about technique?
She was just beating me, man. So what happened was she was almost about to get me 10-0, which means it's a tech. It's an embarrassment. She's about to win, and I'm like, I've got all these friends. They're like the top wrestlers from USA. They train at the Olympic training centers with me, and I'm just like, my life is over. So, but I have a move. It's called the bow and arrow, and the Chinese don't know it. So I take her down, and I get her in the bow and arrow.
Describe the bow and arrow. How does the bow and arrow go?
So the person's flat, and you literally grab their kind of like across by their neck,
Mhm.
and you reach back and you grab their leg and you take the leg towards the head and you start rolling. The Chinese didn't know this, and I was really quick at it. I know how to like get into it quick. So I get her in the bow and arrow, and I just start rolling, and I'm running out of time because she's way up on me.
Mhm.
And at the last minute, I get it, and I ended up beating her by like 1 or 2 points.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Bow
So
and
you
arrow.
saved Team America.
I'm telling you, I was like,
My American champion lost to the girl in China, Chinese
I
girl.
would never let it down. Yeah,
Oh,
to
wow.
this day, I'm still undefeated by
Good.
women.
That's amazing.
Good. I'm defeated by women. Until you get married, then you get defeated every day. Yeah. No, that's a fantastic story.
Yeah, that was.
Mhm.
But China, it's interesting. Precious people, everywhere you go, people are precious. Like Americans, like here in my country, we as I travel, I've seen this. Like we're so obsessed with our cars and like our
Mhm.
houses and our material things. And I have nice things, right? But I'm telling you, like, and you guys know this, like the most precious thing in this world isn't materialistic things; it's people. And like loving people, helping people, and giving our lives to better another life. And I know you fuel off of this because I watch your videos, and I've seen your passion for your work and your life's work with helping people.
Well, so a good friend of mine told, everything you owe ends up owning you.
Yeah.
And what did the Lord say? Rather the camel goes through a needle of a eye of a needle than a rich man through the gate of heaven, right?
Very true.
So, meaning that the material wealth has a way of corrupting people.
Yeah.
Especially if that is your goal. If that's your goal in life, it just corrupt people. And the funny part is this truly happens. People who want to truly provide a value end up being financially more successful 9 out of 10 times than people who just want to be rich no matter
100%,
what.
100%.
So,
yeah, that's so true. Yeah. And it's like, like in my faith, like Jesus, the King of Heaven, he came down to earth.
Mhm.
And we believe, as a Christian, as my faith, we believe he's the King of Heaven. So a king came down to earth. What did he do? Did he build big cathedrals? Did he have nice vehicles? Did he have... No. What was his treasure? The King of Heaven, what was his treasure? It was people.
Yeah.
He took care of people.
Well said.
People.
But that's the story that he goes to Jerusalem and they start breaking these people who trade with money.
Yeah.
He's angry with them. Their goal is just accumulating money with no added value. So what does he do? He goes there, start breaking their... that's actually the word bank is actually originally come from Latin. It means a bench, just a bench. Actually, in German, bench is still called bank. Okay, bank. So because they used to have a bench, sit on a bench with their money and just trade money, gold, silver, and so on. Really add no value to anybody except lending money, letting you work hard, just reaping your reward of your life and so on. And that is what that we now understand that he was so angry with these people
corruption.
who with the corruption of the people who are their whole goal in life is just reaping the reward of other people's life.
Yeah, and then fortunately that was the religious leaders of his day. That was the church of his day. Is they were after. I mean, their passion in doing what they're doing.
I have done few Bible studies myself in my old age.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. You're reading the original stories and so on. Really, gives you a good perspective in life about how was the situation. How can you translate that in your own life today? I think that is very important. But this was such an amazing session.
Totally.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was really enjoyable.
Yeah. It is 3:00. Unfortunately, we have to every good thing comes to an end.
More surgeries for Dr. Abbasi.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you guys for joining. This was Essence of Life, and we talked about breaking barriers. I'm Amanda Armagost.
I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence, and our special guest.
Josh Lindquist.
Thank you
Thank you very
guys.
much
Have
for
a
joining
safe
us.
weekend.